All right, we are live for our second installment in the series of Discover Cuisines of 196 flavors. We are going to give it a couple minutes for people to join us, but I'm very excited to have Chef Denise Browning with us. Today we will spend a few minutes to obviously introduce her shortly, but I'll give people a little time to join us, just 1 or 2 minutes. So bear with us. It's going to be very exciting. We're going to talk about Brazilian cuisine and not only Brazilian cuisine, but all of the regional variations of the cuisines inside Brazil, which is obviously a huge country. So very excited about it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Thank you for having me. And I'm very happy to be here, talking about the food of my country that is so rich in culture and also has so much to offer in terms of the cuisine itself. We have great food and very interesting dishes.
Absolutely. So let's give another 20 seconds or so. We have people starting to join us.
Okay.
Perfect. So just an FYI, we are broadcasting this event on both Facebook and YouTube. We heard your feedback loud and clear last time that not everybody's on Facebook. We get it. So now you have no excuse. You can actually follow us also on YouTube, and you don't need to have a Facebook account. So that's the first thing. Before we get started, actually, as people are joining, I know a lot of people know about 190 servers, but I will maybe start with that as people are joining us. So 190 flavors, we actually started, Vera and I, about a little more than 8 years ago, about the same as Denise actually with her blog. And at the time, we really started more as a food blog, but it has really evolved in much more than a food blog. We're actually not even putting ourselves a food blog anymore. We are really becoming more of an encyclopedia of authentic and traditional recipes from every country in the world. Hence the name 196 flavors, because there are 196 countries in the world. So today we are available not only in English and French since the beginning, but also in Spanish. Hopefully, maybe sometimes in Portuguese, but for now, in 3 languages, we have close to 1,300 recipes and articles in those 3 languages, and obviously available not only on the website, but in all major social media platforms. So before further ado, as we have people joining, let's get started. So like I said earlier, we are very, very excited to have Denise with us for our second installment of these live events. Chef Denise Browning actually has been with 190 Flavors for, I think, almost 6 years now. She was one of our original culinary experts as we started to collaborate with experts from every country. And we do now have more than 35 experts. What we try to do is, because we are not experts ourselves, even though we do a lot of research, is we always try to partner with chefs from the country who have the expertise and who can actually validate all this that we do on the country. Humans, we are humans, we make mistakes, and obviously that's the reason why we have experts like Chef Denise to help us. So talking very briefly about Brazil, this is, as most people know, the largest country in South America. I had the pleasure of visiting this country, not just once, but twice. I spent 5 weeks over there 2 years ago, and Denise actually helped me when I was there to plan for the trip. But I barely scratched the surface in 5 weeks, I have to say, because I wanted to do 3 times as many more things, and I barely had time to do a third, which was okay. I have to go back, but we'll talk about some of the regions that I visited, especially some of the like Minas Gerais, which is very famous for its gastronomy. But it's an amazing country, and I highly recommend everybody to visit this country and obviously explore the cuisine of this country. So without further ado, Denise, maybe if you can tell us about yourself and kind of your journey getting to the culinary world from starting as a lawyer in Brazil.
Well, as you said, I was born and raised in Brazil, and I immigrated to the United States when I was 29 years old. So as an adult already, and because I married an American, there I was a lawyer, a very happy one, and have a successful career there. And then when I immigrated here, my English was not as good as my Portuguese for me to be a lawyer here, and of course had, take test license, everything again. So I told my husband I want to do something else, something that I really enjoy, and I went to culinary school. That was one of my passions. I didn't pursue that in Brazil because I was very busy down there. So here I had this opportunity and say, why not? And when I graduated as a chef and did an internship, in a great place in the Bay Area. At that time, I live in California. Now I live in Texas. It has been like, I think maybe, oh my gosh, I'm gonna turn 15 years, of of being a chef. This is crazy. This is crazy. I graduated in 2006 for the Le Cordon Bleu School, and I have been a chef since then. I don't only blog, I do also food consulting. I did for several large brands, here and also in UK. So yes, especially when we had those events that Brazil hosts a few years ago, so the Olympic Games and the World Cup. And my blog has been around since 2012. And in the first 4 or 5 years, it was only Brazilian cuisine, and then evolved to be a global cuisine. Nowadays, but I have to say one thing. I still doing a lot of Brazilian dishes and also American dishes. I do several other cuisines, but I try to focus on these two cuisines because I can say that I'm an expert on both. Especially after living for so many years in the United States.
I get it. Perfect. No, that's great. So yeah, thanks for talking about your journey. And like I said, we kind of started almost at the same time, about 9 years ago. So talking about Brazil, like I said, I had the pleasure of visiting your country, and it's amazing that as you travel through the country, where you can see the very distinct variations when you go from region to region or state to state. 26 or 27 states, but there's really 5 main regions in Brazil. So before we start talking about the regional cuisines, maybe if you can tell us about, as a whole, Brazilian cuisine, what is really the essence of Brazilian cuisine and what makes it different from other cuisine, especially in South America? What makes it different from other South American cuisines?
Well, is more than one factor, but I think the main factor is I can say are the people, that how can I say that settle in the country. For example, we have Portuguese, African, and also indigenous influence in its roots. Okay, I'm not saying that those are the only groups that are there, but I'm saying in the very beginning, its roots are these 3 groups. And no one in South America had that type of formation. For example, other countries, I'm not saying all, but most of the countries there in South America, they were colonized by Spain. Brazil was the only country colonized by Portugal. Okay, so start there. Then we had African influences that other countries had too. And we also had the indigenous. Yeah. Okay, so if you talk about Portugal doesn't have indigenous influence. Okay, if you talk about other countries that Portugal colonized in India or in Africa, and also part of India, Goa, they don't have that kind of formation. Okay, so that makes Brazil very unique in its roots. And of course, each group influence with their own component to create a national cuisine. Okay, and then later on, you have other groups that came and add more. I can say that Brazil is a melting pot, and you can see clearly the influence of each group in the cuisine. Okay, sometimes is more, regional. It's going to depend on the region that you are. You're gonna see more influence of one group than the other. And sometimes the influence was so big that it didn't stop there. We create something else, from that group.
Absolutely.
Because cuisines they evolve. They evolve along the centuries. They don't stay the same.
Absolutely. You were talking, I mean, the obvious influences are, like you said, Portuguese, African, and indigenous. More recently, as I think, you're probably going to talk about that, but there's been also waves of immigration from the Middle East, Lebanese, Syrians, and other groups that also have influence, but more recently, the cuisine of Brazil in certain regions. German in the south, or Italian.
Polish, Japanese. People can be astonished to find out that Brazil has the largest Japanese descendant in the world.
Oh, really?
Yes. And the second group of Italian immigrants in South America. It just means for Argentina. So we are a melting pot. And you can see this clearly sometimes in our architecture. If you go to the south, you can see clearly German influence. Yeah. If you talk about food, you can see German, Italian, you can see Polish. If you go to other regions, you can see Japanese. For example, São Paulo. São Paulo is not a region, it's a state in the southeast. But São Paulo has a lot of Italian and Japanese influence. So it depends on the region. Sometimes it depends on the state. So it's rich. It's very rich.
Another thing I would mention, and I know we'll probably talk about that when we talk about the regional cuisines, is being such a huge country, it has very distinct variations in terms of climate, as well as obviously terrain. Whether it's close to the sea or the Amazon, the tropical climate, and so on. So obviously it influences the cuisine because you do not have access to the same ingredients. That's another part. And it is reflected in the cuisine itself. As I travel my way through from the south to the north, it was very clear, like the type of ingredients that you would see that are being used, even if the techniques sometimes are very similar, and some, obviously there are some common ingredients, there are some very distinct ingredients that you can see and find as you move through the country. So
always to use as well. For example, we have some dishes that when people come from my blog, they say, that's why I put sometimes the name of the state attached to the dish, because there is more than one version of that dish. It means that they have common ingredients, but people in that region, because the influence of certain group, they add something else. And we have to distinguish one from the other. For example, the galinhada mineira in Minas Gerais is different from galinhada from Goiás.
So galinhada
in Middle East, yes.
And rice, right? A chicken and rice dish.
Exactly. But in Goiás, they put a fruit called piqui that makes that distinction. So you can see clearly, even the feijoada is considered the national dish of Brazil. Yeah. Okay, you can eat feijoada pretty much everywhere in the country. It's a very popular dish, and you can find all the ingredients anywhere. Okay, but if you go to the Amazon region, it's the north, you're gonna see, especially in the state of Pará, something called maniçoba. Maniçoba is, they say that's the Amazonian feijoada, because it has the same meats but doesn't have beans, has maniva. Maniva is the leaves of the manioc. Okay? So, and different from feijoada that you can cook, like you can start and finish exactly the same day. To make like maniçoba, you have to spend 4 to 7 days cooking the maniva leaves, and then add the meats and finish the dish. You know?
I will
Yes.
ask you about feijoada because obviously, before we get into regional cuisines, that's probably the national dish, as you said, that kind of unites Brazil with obviously a Portuguese influence. They probably also make it differently in Portugal as well. They have their own version. I think we have the Portuguese version on the website. But can you maybe tell us a little bit more about maybe your version and how different it is from other versions? Depending, you talked about the Amazonian version, but are there other regional variations, and how does yours differ from other versions?
Well, I can say that feijoada, it's fair to say that feijoada, like, is not cooked the same way for everyone. Of course, has like more or less the same ingredients that are black beans and pork and or beef meats, but there are variations. Sometimes people put a little bit of shredded chicken, in the feijoada. Some people eat with a fried egg on top, which is not traditional. Some people have different ways to make feijoada. But one thing that we have in common nowadays is from my generation, and on and younger, people in Brazil wouldn't necessarily eat the feijoada that was originally cooked by, for example, by the slaves. Okay, it has like pork feet, it has the tail, it has some parts that my generation and on they don't want to see in a feijoada. And some foreigners, when they try the original feijoada, the very traditional one, they look like, what is this?
Yeah.
But of course, I'm not saying this in a derogatory way. They cook what they have in their hands, and I think they did a pretty good job. But nowadays, yes, it has evolved. As so many dishes, and not only dishes in Brazil, I think several in the world.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, the recipes evolve, and like you said, to the taste of each generation. It's not specific to Brazilian cuisine. There's a lot of cuisines that have kind of removed offal, tribes, all these from their traditional dishes. It's unfortunate to some, like me. I love it, but obviously you have to adapt to the taste of the generations. One thing I wanted to mention before we continue is for people who join us from Facebook or YouTube, you should be able to ask questions on each platform, and we will receive them and either answer those questions as they come in if we are talking about specific topic, or we are going to table some to the end if they're kind of off topic. But feel free to ask questions.
Before we move on, I'd like to say that although Portugal, Açores, and other places that has their own version of feijoada, I think what makes Brazilian unique is also the fact that the sides that we serve with is not the same that the sides that we serve in Portugal and other countries. And you can see, although feijoada has like Portugal in its roots, we put some from other groups. For example, farofa is a side that we serve with. Farofa, it comes from the coarse manioc flour, and this is an indigenous ingredient.
Yep.
Okay, and we also serve with very thinly sliced pan-fried collard greens. The group that most use that ingredient were the slaves. Okay, I can say the African Brazilian, group. So feijoada is not something in Brazil that is only Portuguese.
Of course, yeah. I mean, originally it was Portuguese, but obviously it has evolved and
yes. So this makes Brazil unique as well.
Absolutely. Great. So let's talk about regional cuisines. As I said earlier, Brazil is a huge country, but there are really 5 different regions that we're going to talk about that are really distinct. So maybe let's start from the north, the northern region. As you mentioned, more like Amazonian roots, strongly influenced by Portugal, but there's very, different ingredients that are used that are locally sourced, whether it's manioc, acai, and the like. So can you talk a little bit about this cuisine and, maybe talk about a couple of flagship recipes from that area? that you can discuss?
Sure, sure. The Amazonia region, in terms of territory, I think is the largest one, but doesn't have the largest number of states. And mostly, of course, you can see the influence of several groups, but the one that has the most influence that the region is the indigenous. Okay, and you can see clearly this in the very unique ingredients and how they use that. It is very, very clear. And those ingredients, because most come from the Amazon forest, the Brazilian part of the Amazon forest, they are very distinguished from the other ingredients in the country. And sometimes, depending on the ingredient, you cannot find easily in the other parts of the country. Okay, for example, açaí. Açaí, like you guys call here açaí, but it's açaí. Açaí, the way that people eat there is not the same way that we eat in the rest of the country. First of all, they have the ingredients, available fresh. They have machines that press the ingredient and make those açaí balls. And different, and the rest of the country has the frozen pulp. Okay, just like in abroad. Yeah. And the other thing is the açaí there, they eat in a different way. Most of the açaí in there, that's all day long. It's not only one thing for breakfast. It's savory. Okay, yes, it's savory. There is nothing to do with the açaí ball that has the banana syrup and the granola and bananas. Okay, they mix the coarse, how can I say, manioc flour that we make the farofa, and they top with dry fish, shrimp, and also tapioca pearls.
So that's in the Amazon, right? In
the Amazon region.
Yeah, because I was in Recife, and I, as a gringo, probably I asked for an acai bowl, and they had one. They had an acai bowl. But I asked blueberries, and they were like, "What is that?" Like, we put blueberries in acai bowl here in the US, but they had no clue what I was talking about.
No, it's very different. We have several acai bowl shops here close to my house in Texas, and every time that I go with my kids, they enjoy and everything, but they laugh and say, if they know how different it is from here to what we have in Brazil. In Brazil, you even have in the rest of the country, like, it's almost like a acai bowl bar that you have a huge display there, and just like some ice cream shops here, and you can choose whatever toppings you want to, and sometimes they drizzle with sweetened condensed milk. Okay, so it's completely different. It's another world. Okay, so in the Amazon region, they eat differently. They have access to the fresh fruit. Opposed the rest of the country, that's the frozen fruit, and they eat all day long. Is not only for breakfast or after you leave the gym, and you want like a boost of energy or something like that, and you can see. Also, other difference there. For example, in one of the interviews that I gave you many years ago, as an expert in your blog, it was a written interview. I mentioned, for example, dishes like pato no tucupi. It's like duck in tucupi, like say broth. Okay. I think it would be the best translation to that. Basically, although many dishes, it goes, it uses more or less the ingredient of the cassava or manioc. So the tucupi is like a yellow broth that is extracted from the cassava plants. They have, how can I say, the tapioca crepes that I have in my blog, okay, that is made from the tapioca flour. They have, like I said, the acai that top with mixed with the tapioca flour and the coarse manioc flour, and also they mix with the tapioca pearls. Okay, they make like a lot of use of tapioca and cassava and the leaves, everything, almost every part of the plant. And this is very indigenous. And they have, of course, fruits that it is typical from there. I can mention bakuri. I can mention
jambu is another fruit that
jambu, and there are several others. It's a whole list that we don't have easily available in the rest of the country. Sometimes you can find in a restaurant that's typical from there and is located in other states, but they have to bring from there. It's a special order, you know. So
we spent a lot of time on the northern region. I know we have a few more to cover, and I wanted to make sure that we have enough time to talk about them. So let's talk about the northeast region, or Nordeste, which is a region I know you're from, but I unfortunately didn't spend enough time there. I just went to Recife, which is your city.
My city, yeah.
And I know it's probably a region that most tourists go to because, you know, beautiful beaches and, you know, very touristy and everything. But that's going to be my next trip. So tell us about the cuisine of that region.
Well, the cuisine of that region has all the three influences, you know, Portuguese, indigenous, and of course, black. But I think the ones that has influenced most, I think, is the Portuguese and also the black. And but you can see it depends on the state. That is even more specific. My region, the beauty is when you talk about the region, you have to talk about the states, because not every group has, like, how can you say, the same influence in every single state. You know, for example, Recife, you can see that it has more Portuguese influence, but if you go to Bahia, it's black.
Yes.
You know, if you go to Ceará, it's more indigenous. So it depends on the state, and it's the region with the largest number of states.
I have to say, one of my discoveries there, and probably the dish I really loved the most was moqueca de peixe from Bahia, with the you know, the sides of farina, farofa, and so that I don't know if you can tell us about this, and, you know, how it's made, and maybe how it differs in other regions, if it is made differently in other regions. But to me, that was my favorite dish over there.
So I'm sorry. Sometimes the connection is cutting a little bit. What's the name of the dish that you?
Moqueca de peixe.
Moqueca de peixe. Okay, yeah. Well, for example, moqueca itself has variations. You ate the moqueca de peixe, but if you go, Bahia also has, and all the other states, moqueca de camarão, it's shrimp moqueca, and the moqueca mista, which is a mixed moqueca that's made with fish and shrimp, okay, which is very, very common. People want the two of them. So yeah, I mean, Bahia itself has distinction depending on the ingredient that you use. But one thing that they all have in common is they use the holy trinity of Bahia cuisine, that is coconut milk, then the oil or palm oil, and also the malagueta pepper. You know, so I would say that though that holy trinity would be kind of the miraculois or the sofrito of Bahia cuisine. You know, so you can find pretty much in almost every single dish, especially when you're cooking a stew.
So it's, you know, fish stew, shrimp stew, but maybe can you talk to us about the sides? I really like, I think it was called farina or farofa?
Farofa.
Farofa, which is made, I think it's cassava.
Yes, it's the coarse manioc flour.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's almost the same thing as the tapioca flour, but the difference is the one that makes farofa is coarse. You know, and the tapioca flour is almost like a powder. You know, it's the way that you process that makes the difference. And one thing is, the farofa in Bahia, they use the oil, in the rest of the country, we don't use dende oil. We use like olive oil or butter or both, you know, in our farofa.
To me, with my background, and for people who know about it, it kind of looks like couscous in terms of the texture. Obviously, it's gluten free because it's made with cassava, so it's great for people who are gluten intolerant. But I really love the texture and probably also the dende oil that it was made with in Bahia.
Yes, and one thing is people, one of the most common questions when people come to my blog and comment about dishes from Bahia is they always ask me, how can I choose United States a good dende oil? You know, because if you see the different brands and the variety that you're gonna find here, you can see clearly some are very liquid and some has like kind of the bottom has like a very thick paste, and then you can see the liquid on top, you know. So and they ask me where I bought and this kind of stuff. So in the whole country, United States, you can order from Amazon.com. But two things that you have to look at for is if it's completely liquid, it probably has been dissolved. Okay, look for the thick paste on the bottom. And the other thing is the color. The real dende oil, it has like a reddish orange color. If it's yellow, completely yellow, probably it doesn't come. It can come from the palm tree, but it's the kernel. It's not the fruit itself. The real dende oil comes the fruit. You know, that's why it has that reddish, you know, orange color.
And for people who have never cooked with dende oil, I highly recommend it, obviously for Brazilian cuisine, but a lot of African dishes are obviously using palm oil. I know it has kind of a bad rep in the US and a lot of other countries, but it is a great oil and it gives a very particular taste, which personally I love, which is very unique to the cuisine of that region. So let's move on to the next region and talk about the Central West region with states like Goiás, Mato Grosso, and Mato Grosso do Sul. And maybe if you can tell us about the different influences, some of the ingredients, the typical ingredients from that region as well.
That region we call Cerrado. In that region, you have like unique ingredients, but they are kind of more or less similar to what you can find in the Amazon region. And they have a specific fruit, like I said, piqui, that they put in a lot of stuff, you know. And they have like one of them is the agalinhada, the arroz com pollo or Brazilian chicken and rice. And they also have some specific fish, you know, that come from their rivers. Because they have the Pantanal. I don't even know how to translate this to English.
There are some that are, in my research, there are some that I know are very close to Piranha, Pacu, or Pintado.
Pacu, yes. Those are very unique fish from you know, local, from that region. And they also make something that upsets people from my region very much, that became theirs, of course, but upset us a little bit. Pamonha, that would be almost like the Brazilian tamales, that's made with yellow corn, but instead of being steamed, is boiled. But you can find wrapped in the fresh, fresh husks, and they make salty. You know, it's savory. They put cheese and pieces of cheese and sausages. And in the Northeast region, where the dish really comes from, is sweet. We make with condensed milk, coconut milk. It is sweet, you know. So kind of upset us because, and this is not uncommon. You know, some people get our dishes and they make something very different.
I think it happens in every region of the world. There's another ingredient which is very specific over there, is carne de sol, which is
that's from my region. That's from my region, carne de sol. Carne de sol, I wouldn't say that is a beef jerky, but because it's how can I say, it's not as dry, but follow on as the same process because you have to put salt and leave it for a while to dry a little bit. But in the scale, I would say we have the carne de sol, sun-dried beef that look like a steak, really a steak. And then you come for carne seca that has more salt and is a little bit more dry. And then you come to charque, that is the Brazilian beef jerky. So that is this distinction.
Okay, perfect. Let's move to the region which we're probably going to spend a little more time on because it's probably a region that most people from outside of the Brazil know because they spend a lot of time there. The Southeast region includes Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, Minas Gerais, which I really, really loved. I spent a week there. Beautiful, beautiful state. And we actually have a question. Let's start with that from Lisette. Pão de queijo, which is originally from Minas Gerais.
Minas Gerais.
Known for its dairy products. Are there variations of the recipe? She's asking, let me actually show. I always thought the dough was cooked before baking, but someone told me that wasn't the traditional way of making them.
True, the dough was cooked before baking. Well, it depends. It depends on the process. The traditional one, you can see they look like more agogeur. That's like French, what it is. It is like round and puffy. In general, what you do is you heat it up, the oil, the milk, and with the salt and everything, and you pour in the tapioca flour, and you mix everything to the point of become a dough, and then you, you form like little balls and bake them. But there are another way that we make that is more like from our generation and younger people do, that we blend all the ingredients in the blender, and then we pour into, let's say, muffin tins, and you can see the difference because they puff up and then they deflate. When they deflate, you can see, oh, that is from the blender. That's from the blender. So it depends the process. The first one, the traditional, is one of my favorite ones that I make all the time. But I can confess that when I don't have the time, the first one is what I make, and you have to eat right away. Otherwise you're gonna have that.
Yeah, I mean, these are the kind of things, I think, regardless of the way they're being made, you have to eat them fresh. When I was in Minas Gerais, I splurged on pão de queijo, especially in the morning, with a basket of pão de queijo. This is kind of like our croissant in France, like we have croissant for breakfast. This is pão de queijo over there, and every breakfast, like you have to have your bread basket of pão de queijo.
And then they use because Minas Gerais is very well known for their dairy industry. And they have like a great cheese called Minas cheese, and they make their pão de queijo in general with Minas cheese, where the rest of the country make with Parmesan cheese. Mm-hmm. When you don't see the Minas available here in the abroad, you don't. It's very hard to find Minas cheese. Sometimes I have to substitute with the Mexican queso fresco, which is not the same thing, but it's fine.
We have the chance of having a Brazilian community in Los Angeles, and we have 2 or 3 stores that carry Minas cheese and others. Are there any other specialty from Minas Gerais that may or may not use cheese? I don't know if this is from Minas Gerais, but Romeo and Julieta, is that from there?
Well, I don't know if it's. I cannot say for sure that is from there. I just know that it's very popular there, as in most of the country, actually. Basically it's cheese with, a piece of guava paste.
Or queen's paste sometimes, or is it just guava paste?
No queens is guava. For us, it's guava. The ones that there was a lot of queens is the Argentinian. The Brazilian, there is no queens.
Got it. Talking about the other states in the region, so we talked about Minas Gerais, which is also known for its gastronomy. But what about Rio and Sao Paulo? You mentioned earlier Sao Paulo that had some Japanese influence. as well. But what other dishes, Sao Paulo being the capital, I'm sure it has a lot of, it's a big melting pot. But are there any specificities to the cuisine of the state of Sao Paulo?
There is even one, a sandwich called Bauru, that has the same name of the city of Bauru in São Paulo, and so yes, it's from that state. And we also have a lot of Italian influence, so it's the place for you to get pizza, great pizza. And the thing is, it's almost like they have a lot of buffets, and they serve not only savory but also sweet pizzas, all kind of feelings that you can think of, and the Italians may be upset about this, I don't know, but we have this. And as for the Japanese, we have, of course, traditional Japanese dishes there, but we also have what we call tropical sushi. We use fruits, in our sushi.
Instead of fish.
Yeah, we use fish as well, but we use fruits, that you don't see so often in authentic Japananize dishes, sushi.
We do see them in the US, but we have particular taste here. And we do see mango or sometimes pineapple. Talking about pizza, obviously there's big debates here in the US about the Hawaiian pizza, which I'm not a big fan of personally. But I have to say, I did go to a Brazilian restaurant here in LA that served me a pizza. We were talking about Romeo and Julieta, but that was a Romeo and Julieta pizza with guava paste and cheese on top of the pizza. So, it's not for the purists, but it was actually pretty good.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. We enjoyed that. Look, what is about Brazilians in their cuisine is we really enjoy our ingredients. We are very proud of them, and every time if you talk with a Brazilian that live abroad, every time that they go, they eat everything that they cannot eat here. Okay, they don't find at all, don't find easily. And another thing is they bring like suitcases full of things that the United States let us in, So yes, we really enjoy the cuisine and our coffee and everything else there.
Absolutely. Any particular dishes from the state of Rio or the area?
Yes, in Rio, although the feijoada has, I think is I wouldn't say that the feijoada is from Rio, okay? But you have to recognize that it became very popular there, and you can see in almost any menu, especially in the bars, but you have something that is very from there, that is the Brigadeiros. People say, no, Brigadeiro is from São Paulo. And Brigadeiro is from there and there and there, but I believe in the how can I say, in the version that is from Rio.
So Brigadeiros are cocoa powder, sweetened condensed milk, and butter. So those are confectionaries that are kind of bowls of chocolate. Really, really good. And there's variations, of course, but those are the three common ingredients.
People call sweet or candy, but it's actually a fudge. If you go, technically in the classification would be a fudge. And I call them chocolate fudge balls.
Yeah, I would call it a truffle. It's kind of a truffle too, chocolate truffle.
Well, but truffle would have chocolate and have heavy cream. And we have cocoa powder, sweet condensed milk, that milk and sugar and butter.
Yeah. So
it's a fudge.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really, really good. So I didn't realize it was from there. I know maybe there's controversy, but Brigadeiro is an interesting one.
It is very famous. It is very famous.
About the last region that we left for the end. I actually started my way up. So I started with that region, so the southern region, with a state like Paraná, Santa Catarina, and Rio Grande do Sul. In addition to all the other influences that we talked about, obviously in that region, you're going to see some German influence as well, right?
Yes. For example, we have from them something that is very well known as apple kuchen. That is a cake with apple. We call cuca de maçã, and has some strews on top. We have a lot of the Italian influence, and you can see that they produce a lot of wine there. We have those soups that we call imbrodo. That is Italian. It's soup with pasta and a light broth.
Okay.
We have also, of course, the famous churrasco. That is the Brazilian barbecue that I think is the most well-known item abroad.
So close, obviously, being so close to Argentina and Uruguay, you're going to see some common influences and common, you talk about churrascaria or others, and we see very similar, because I studied with Argentina and Uruguay, and it was almost like I was, in the same country, because very, very similar dishes and.
Yeah, you can see even like a side or a sauce that we serve that is the chimichurri sauce. It's very common in the churrascarias in Rio Grande do Sul, which is not, you have, but it's not as common in the rest of the country. In the rest of the country, served with vinaigrette would be the Brazilian pico de gallo. Let's say that would be the most similar thing, which is not the same, but would be the most similar thing that I can call for. So yes, you have also other items. For example, our pão de mel that is very similar to their what's the name? The one that the cookie with the alfajor. Okay, it's the alfajor, but not the alfajor of maicena alfajor. That is those tin cookies. Is more like it's almost like a little cake, a gingerbread cake that is cut in the middle and put like dulce, and then we cover with chocolate.
So mostly.
Yes. So yes, we in the south with what we call kind of a little bit of the Argentinian or the Chilean alfajor. Not exactly the Peruvian, the style, but yes, that you can see that influence as well.
Perfect. So we have some comments, not necessarily questions, but before we wrap up in a few minutes, if you have any question about what we covered or what we may not have covered, whether it's ingredients, recipes, influences, anything you want to ask our expert Denise, please do so either on YouTube or Facebook. I'm going to show a couple of comments here. One from Aminata. I am from African backgrounds and I had traveled several times to Brazil. While tasting Bahian food, I like finding my Madeleine de Proust, which is kind of the French expression for talking about something from your childhood out there in South America. What an experience. So obviously, we talked about the cuisine from that region in Bahia. When I was there for a few days during the Carnival, actually in Salvador, it was a very, very unique and different experience from anything else in Brazil. Like I said, I really, really enjoyed the moqueta de peixe. We didn't talk about Akaraje. Akaraje is called Akara in West Africa. So those are black-eyed peas fritters, typically served with kind of a dip or a sauce like with tomato, spicy, and sometimes not always with made with shrimp. Dried shrimp. But there are some vegetarian versions as well. But the kind of food, that street food, right? That you also are being served on the beach, and this is perfect. I mean, this is great. We also haven't talked about alcohol, but I don't know if you can tell us anything about caipirinha and cachaça.
Well, I would say that cachaça would be considered the national alcoholic beverage of my country. Of course, no alcoholic is coffee, And but cachaça, people call it here the Brazilian rum, but it's actually not the same because the taste is even different. I mean, they have more or less the same level of alcohol. It's a distilled beverage, but cachaça comes from the fresh, how can you say, cane juice, and that's why it is more fruity and has a fresher taste. And if you go to rum, that you have, for example, in Cuba, it is made from molasses that are byproduct from the cane sugar. So it has more like a caramelized taste. But if you don't have cachaça available, yes, you can put in your caipirinha. Some people put vodka, yeah, you can replace. It's not going to be the same, but you can replace. And in Brazil, it's not only about mashing limes, that's the traditional one, but we have all kind of flavors. If you go there, it has like an entire menu in the restaurant with different fruits.
My favorite for people who haven't tried, obviously, like you say, lime is the traditional flavor, but maracuja, passion fruit.
Yes. That's a good one.
Yes.
Very, very good one.
Another comment from JC. I'm glad Brazilian cuisine is becoming more common in the US these days. They even have the Brazilian cheese bread in the freezer aisle in my state. I don't know which state he's talking about, but yes, it is true that it's becoming more and more popular. Like other cuisines, that had not necessarily been on the map, like French, like Italian, like Japanese, and so on. But yes, there are, there's a globalization of cuisines, and it's great because we have access. It's very rare, especially on 190 servers, because we cover all the countries. It's very rare when we cannot source an ingredient unless you really need it fresh. You talk about a couple ingredients that, it's harder to find fresh sometimes. About it when we talked with our Haitian expert last month about a mushroom that is obviously difficult to find fresh, but you can always find frozen versions or jams when we talk about fruits or juices frozen. So it's always possible to find those ingredients.
Well, I'm very glad for the Latin, the Latinos here in the United States, because thanks to them, and they made several things that we enjoy. They are available here too. For example, the Guava Paste, that 10 years ago was not as common as right now. You can even buy in Walmart. The Latin Walmart. At my time, you had to go to a Latin special store to buy that ingredient.
Absolutely.
So there are some ingredients that we share, with the other Latin countries, and there are others that are very, very unique,
Absolutely. So if we have a few more questions, feel free again to send them to either Facebook comments or YouTube. While we are waiting for questions, we'll spend a couple minutes talk about your current project or upcoming project, Denise, and you can maybe tell us about your latest book.
Well, I wrote this cookbook right here. Let me show. I don't know. I can see. Let me put it right here. Okay, it's the complete 5-ingredient cookbook. 175 busy recipes for busy people. You can find here global recipes. The ones that my editor only let me put it, that is from that country. It was the Brazilian. All the rest is Mexican style, Indian style, and this kind of stuff. But you can find 175 global recipes, including from Brazil. All of them is 5 or 5 plus some main ingredients that the base of the ingredient. And I hope you find, because it's really a very good cookbook, especially if you, like me, you are a busy mommy, you are a busy person, you work all day long outside home. Yes, I hope you can get this in your hands.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because, obviously we have a lot of comments sometimes, or people who come to our website, and we're not changing recipes. As you know, we're keeping them authentic. So we don't really create any recipe ourselves, right? Those are traditional, authentic. But it's interesting because a lot of people who come to our website, most of them are totally fine with it, and they have the time, and they are very curious about finding the ingredients and so on. But obviously, a lot of times we just want to eat, and we just want to make a meal for our family. So we also have a lot of people who look for easy access recipes where it's ingredients that you can easily find, but also cook quickly for weekday dinners and so on. But you still want to have a different flair, right? You don't want to make pasta every day, or you don't want to make easy and the same thing every single day. So for this type of people who are curious about other cuisines yet may not have the time to source the ingredients or make the recipes, it's a great cookbook to to have kind of an initiation to global cuisine.
Yeah, it's true. For example, me, I love curries. I love Indian curries. But really, during the week, if my family asks, can you make a curry? It's gonna be the curry from my cookbook. It's 5 ingredients. I'm sorry, I don't have time to prep 16 to 19 ingredients. That's reality. I mean, if you have the time, go for it. But I don't, and many people don't. You have a zillion things to juggle with during the day. So it is resourceful, and I can tell you, I can give you a decent curry with 5 ingredients. Of course, it's not gonna be the same as a traditional curry, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, of course, yeah. There's no question about it. I personally don't mind putting 20 ingredients in my curries, but I have a spice cabinet, which everything is kind of readily available. And Indian cuisine happens to be my favorite cuisine too. So I do curries quite often, but I got used to it. But as you said, like for people who are not used to it or don't know, like they see a list of ingredients and they get overwhelmed. So
for me, it is. I mean, I have a business to take care. I have 2 kids to attend that are being homeschooled because of this pandemic. Okay, I have a husband. I have a life. So I mean, I have to rest as well. Being very realistic. I am a chef, and I can tell you, I can chop things pretty fast. Yeah. But some people even came to my blog and say, hey, you have to put more time for your prepping in your recipes. I said, but that was the time that took me to say, yeah, but I'm a cook, you a chef. You understand? So that's it. I can chop pretty fast, but I'm telling you, I don't have the time to do certain traditional dishes as in the very traditional way. So I find a way that I can retain a pretty good flavor, but it's going to spend less time in the kitchen. So that's what this cookbook is about. It's not for everyone. It's for busy cooks.
Absolutely. So tell us, your website, easyanddelish.com, for people who don't know. Originally, it was called From Brazil to You, mostly Brazilian. It has evolved to global cuisine, mostly American and Brazilian. Can we find the cookbook on your website or on Amazon?
Yes, you can find my book on Amazon. You can find it on Barnes & Noble. You can find you can buy directly on my website. That is on the sidebar there. That is the cookbook. When you click, you go directly to Amazon. So it's a pretty useful cookbook. There is not only recipes there. There are a lot of cooking tips from a chef. And how to preserve your food, how to store, how to freeze, how to prep your pantry, because when you don't have time, you can get all ingredients around and prepare a recipe right away, So yeah, there are a bunch of very useful tips and even meal prep meals.
Perfect. Excellent. I'm going to talk briefly also about our cookbook. So we just released our 5th cookbook on South American cuisine. So it's not just Brazilian, but South American cuisine. I think it has more than 100 recipes on there. Obviously, Denise has been part of it because she has validated our recipes and articles. So we have experts, like Lizette is actually one of our experts on 196 flavors for Bolivian cuisine. So we have experts validating our research, and this one is about South American cuisine, and it is available on our website, only in a digital format for us.
And guys, because they really do a good job. They really do.
And so it doesn't look like we have more questions. This broadcast will actually be available on both YouTube and Facebook. Thank you so much, Denise, for
my pleasure.
Of our second installment. We look forward to continuing to work with you and collaborating and putting Brazilian cuisine on the map for our global audience and making sure that we stay authentic and traditional. Thanks again. Any final comments for our audience, Denise?
Well, thank you very much for spending time here with me. I know everyone is very busy, and thank you for the interest in the cuisine of my country that has so much to offer, and I hope it becomes more and more popular. And I can guarantee when you come to my website, you can find true Brazilian recipes, and I put my heart and soul there, and I always want to represent my country with dignity and be as truthful as I can be, And because I'm talking about, when I give my recipes, I'm talking about my people, in my country, and I have like a great respect for them, and for all that they did. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Mike, for bringing me, to your space to talk about something that I love so much. It has been a pleasure.
Thanks again, Denise. Thanks again, everybody, for joining, and we'll see you very soon for another installment of our live events. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you.